All right, good morning. So we're going to go over Chapter 6, Lesson 2. Our first lesson we were looking at slope, and then we mentioned what a parallel slope and a perpendicular slope is. So a quick recollection is slope is really based off of a linear straight line, and it's how much a line goes up for every unit that x goes to the right. So example here, if you wanted to find the slope, we know it goes kind of, you have to pick 2 points. So if I picked maybe this point and this point, just because they're right on the intersections of the squares, I could calculate the slope as the amount it rises divided by the amount it runs. So it rises up around 3 and runs 4 units. So our slope would be 3/4. Okay, so if I were to draw a little triangle here, this is from last day, m is equal, well, let's do this to the side, slope is equal to rise over run, and in this case we rise up 3 and we go right 4, so it's going to be a slope of 3/4. And so generally in this kind of lesson, this is definitely, again, just like last class, this one is one of the most important lessons that you can have in math, is learning this equation here. It's called the slope-intercept equation of a linear line. So how you get this equation, or what it looks like, is generally a y equals, and then generally the m is a number. It's not m, but they denote that number as m, times x plus, and then there will be a number there. So it's just a number times x plus another number. That's what this form is. Okay, so let's find out what m is. M is the variable they use for slope, always. So the m for this line is, we calculated it, 3/4. Okay, so 3 divided by 4, or 0.75, is our m value for this particular line. Okay, what does that b value mean then? Well, this is the other important piece, is b value denotes where, it's called the y-intercept. It's where the line crosses the y-axis so it's where the line crosses the y-axis. So if you look, they have a dot here already. That is our b value, or that's where the line crosses our y-axis right here. Okay, so that's our y-axis. This is our line. You know, it's, since it's a line, it's going to have to cross that y-axis unless it's a straight up and down line. Most of the time they're not, so it's going to cross right there. So we need to know what value that is. Let's see. In relation to y, it's, we go up 1 square, and it looks like we go up half a square. So our y-intercept is where it crosses, or 1.5. Okay? And we know 3/4 is also equal to 0.75. Alright, so now we found our m value, which means slope always. We found our b value, which always means y-intercept. So we can write the equation for this line. One thing to remember is generally you always leave y as it is, and instead of, I'll write the normal form first. Now we just kind of replace our m with that m and our b with that b. So let's do that. Our y is equal to, our m is 0.75, or 3 over 4 would work as well, plus 1.5. And what it kind of means, that means this line. It is that line in the form of an equation. And so what it kind of means reading-wise is you start at 1.5 and then you go up 0.75 for every unit you go to the right. So you go over to the right once, you go up 0.75. Go over once, you go up 0.75. And so that's the slope-intercept form. Very important thing in sciences. Alright, so now let's try this question. The graph of a linear function, which linear means straight line, has a slope of 3 over 5, so that means our m is 3 over 5, or it rises 3 when it goes over to the right 5 units. And our y-intercept is -4. So I'm going to go ahead and write our b value is -4. Okay, so it crosses the y-axis down at -4. Write an equation for this function. So we don't even need to graph this function. You know that there would be a graph of this function, but let's write the equation. We know an equation for any straight line. Now that we know this one up here, we can always start out with y equals mx plus b. Alright, so you leave y as y, and our m, they tell us what our slope is, 3 over 5. So we can write 3 over 5. Generally, you would write it in brackets when you're replacing a variable. Then you write x plus, and then in brackets, our y-intercept is -4. So now we can just simplify this a bit. We can drop the brackets here. So y equals 3 over 5x, and then a plus times a negative is just a negative, so -4. So that is our equation of this particular line. What would it look like if I were to draw it really quickly? Well, you start out at your b value, which is -4. So let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4. You start there. And then you go up 3 spaces, rise over run. You go up 3 when you go over 5. So we go up 1, 2, 3. Well, we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our line would look something like that, very roughly. Alright, so let's do example 2 now. Graph each linear function. So we know we have an equation, and that's the only form of an equation that we know, is y equals mx plus b. And this is y equals mx plus b. So let's say what our m is. Our m is 1 over 2. Our b value is, let's see, plus and plus match up, so our b value is 3. Alright, so now we need to graph it. Okay, so again, you start at the b value, and since it's a plus 3, we're going to start up 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put a little circle there just to show where we're starting from. And then we go up by 1, over by 2, and we'll put another dot. Okay, so up by 1, over by 1, 2. And I always go to the right. And I put another dot. Okay, so that means for this line, every time we go up once, we have to go over 2. Okay, and so when I'm to draw this, I just take a ruler and go through those 2 points. And that's my line for this equation. They mean the same thing. So now we go over to this next one. And now we have an equation y equals -3 over 4x plus 2. So let's do the same thing. Y equals mx plus b. So if we look, our y's are y equal m -3 over 4 x b plus 2. So our m must be -3 over 4, and our b must be +2. Okay, We remember we start at our b value when we're trying to graph it. So our b value is positive 2, so it's up 2. And now we use that m value. So we go, what I do when I have a negative is I always bring it with the top number, negative 3 over 4, over positive 4. So what that means is I go down 3 and right 4. Okay? So here if I go down 1, and it's always from that b value, from where you started. So 1, 2, 3, and then to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have 2 dots, and when you have 2 dots of a line, you can draw the line, always. And so that's the line of this equation, and they mean the same thing. One thing to note is if your m value is negative, it means if you put something on this line, it would roll downhill when you're moving right. Again, right is that way. And then if your m value is a positive number, like this equation, it means when you move that same direction right, it wouldn't roll downhill. You'd have to push it uphill. Okay, so it means uphill if it's a positive, it means downhill when it's a negative. So you can do a quick check when you see an equation. You'd say y equals half x plus 3. You'd see that the m value is positive, so you'd say this is going to be uphill. This is going to be downhill. Okay. Example 3. Write an equation to describe each function. Verify the equations. Well, we know this is a function. It's a linear function. It's this line here. Okay, I put little arrows on it because linear functions go kind of forever. Write an equation to describe each function. So where do I start? Well, we know we need to write an equation, and it'll probably look like the only one that we've seen is y equals mx plus b. So we need to find out what b is, and we need to find out what m is, and then we're done. So let's find out what b is first, because that's usually where you start. What does b mean again? It means y-intercept, or where it crosses this y-axis. And where does it cross? Right there. At negative 4. Alright, our next job is to find out what the m variable is, or the slope of this line. So generally what I do is see how this crosses right at the intersection of the squares, right there. So you have to find another point on this line that is right on the intersections of the square. So the next one I see is right there. You could really choose any point, but this is the easiest one to work with. Okay, so now we have those 2 points, and I know my slope is rise over run. Okay, so if I make that my first point and that my second point, I'm rising down 3, so that's negative 3, and I'm running to the right 1, 2. So my slope is negative 3 over 2. Okay, so I haven't written in the equation form yet. I found b, I found m. Now let's just write it in that form. Y equals negative 3 over 2, and now I write my x plus b, and my b is negative 4. So I go plus negative 4. And then if I simplify that, I can just drop the brackets, so it's negative 3 over 2x minus 4. So that is the equation that represents that line there. They mean the same thing. Alright. And it also says verify the equation. So I know this is right just because of the many years of doing it, but if you wanted to make sure that you were right, you could take one of these points here or anywhere on the line. You could even take a third one, so let's take this one here. And then you plug in that point into your equation and see if it's true. Okay? So this point here I know is 1, 2, 3, 4 is -4, 1, 2. That is the coordinate point of that point. -4, 2. -4x plus 2y. So what you do, since it's x, y, you plug in those in for your x and your y, and you see if it is equal. Okay, so let's plug in that -4 for our x. So we're checking. Y equals -3 over 2 times, and our x value for this point is -4 minus 4. And now we got to do a little bit of math. -4 we can write as -4 over 1. And when you're multiplying two fractions, you go the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. So -3 times -4 gives us positive 12. 2 times 1 gives us 2. And then we can just write that -4 again. We know 12 over 2 can be simplified to the number 6. And we know 6 minus 4 is just 2. So what we're saying is when x is -4, what's our y value? It ends up being 2. Let's see if that's true. When it's a -4, it ends up being 2. It does work out. So then we just did a quick check to see that our equation is actually true, because we plugged in just a random number from our line, and we found out that it checks out, that it does tell us that the y value for that x value is a 2. Okay. All right, let's try question B. Write an equation to describe each function. So we have to write an equation. So I'm going to go y equals mx plus b. So let's find our b value first. Where does it cross the y axis? Right down here at a value of 1, 2, 3 down. So it has to be a -3. And our m is our slope. So we got to find the slope of this line. We know the slope is a rise over run. Okay, so I need to find a point on this line. Any point would work, but I need to find one that intersects the two squares right on the corner of a square. Okay, if you look, this one kind of looks like it right there. That would work. And here's another one that would work. So I'm going to choose this one. Either would come out with the same answer. So here, if I choose that my first point and that my second point, I rise 1, 2, 3, 4, and I run 1, 2. So my rise is plus 4, because then we're going up, and to the right 2, which is positive as well. So my slope, we can simplify this. 4 over 2 is just positive 2. So now I can rewrite it in the equation form. Our slope is 2, y equals 2, x plus, and our b value is -3. And now I can simplify this by dropping the brackets and not writing that positive, because a positive times a negative is a negative. So that's the equation that I say for this equation, 2x minus 3. Alright, let's do a quick check just to make sure we're right. I'm pretty certain that that's my answer, but let's just check. Let's take an arbitrary random number from this line. I'll choose this one down here. And that has the point, let's see, -1 down 5. So -1 x value, -5 y value. That's the coordinate point for this one here for the check. So now let's plug that -1 value in for our x to see if we get that -5 as our y. So y equals 2. Our x value is -1, -3. And so our y is 2 times -1 is -2, We write that negative 3 again. And then negative 2 minus 3 is equal to negative 5. So y is negative 5 when our x is negative 1. Let's see, x is negative 1 and we get negative 5. So it does check out. Okay, so that is our answer right there. All right, last part. Example 4, word problem. Write an equation. Oh, the student council sponsored a dance. A ticket costs $5 and the cost for the DJ was $300. Okay, so if you're the owner, you would have to pay $300 for this DJ, but you know that everybody that comes gives you $5. So you get plus $5 for every person, but you get minus $300 for the DJ. So that's minus $300. This is plus $5 per person. Write an equation for the profit P dollars on the sale of T tickets. Okay, so we want an equation where P really is your Y for the sale of X tickets. Okay, so P really means Y and T really means X. So we know we need to find an equation, and we know we're doing linear equations right now. So you would guess that this question would be the type of questions that we're working with, which is y equals mx plus b. But again, this time they use P for profit, which means how much money you're getting in the end, and sales of tickets, which is number of tickets. So instead of y, we're using P, and instead of x, we're using T. Okay, but it's really the same thing. All right, so our profit is equal to our slope times the number of tickets plus b. Okay, so here we're starting out at negative 300. Okay, because remember the b value is the starting value. So our b value is negative $300 because we have to pay for that DJ no matter what. And then we know that our slope is how much money per x value increase. And so the amount we're rising per one ticket is going to be $5, or the amount of money we get per person is $5. So we know m, which is slope, is increase in profit over increase in number of tickets. Okay, so here our slope, which is rise over run, or also change in y over change in x. But in this case, since y is p, we go change in p, and since x is t, it's change in t. The change in profit over the change in tickets. So how much profit do you get? More profit do you get per one ticket increase? And this is just going to be $5. Okay, so we have a b value of negative 300 and m value of $5. So let's plug it into our equation. Our y equals m, which is 5, t plus b, which is negative 300. And so then we get 5t minus 300. And that's our equation for this. I know there's no graph, but it really is a linear function because you start at something and you get the same increase for every x unit, or this time t. Okay, so suppose 123 people bought tickets. What was the profit? So I wrote this in y and t. This should really be a p. So p equals 5t minus 300. All right, and that should be a p as well. So you always just start out with your equation once you found it. Suppose 123 people. Does P mean people or does T mean people? Well, T means tickets, and 123 people bought tickets, so 123 tickets. So that means that's our T value, because we're trying to find our profit. That means our profit we're trying to find. 5, our ticket number is 123, and then negative 300. So now we can solve for this by going 5 times 123. What's that? 615, so we can write P equals 615, and then write that negative 300 again. So overall, the money you get for 123 tickets is $615. We got to pay for that DJ, so that's minus 300. So our overall profit in the end is 615 minus 300, $315. So we are getting a profit in the end. Smart to make the dance. Everyone has fun, and you make money out of it as well. All right. C. Suppose the profit was $350. How many people bought the tickets? So generally these questions, they always tell you, put in a number for T and find P, and then this time it's put in a profit number for P and calculate what T is, or how many tickets you need to get that much money. So you write your initial equation that we found earlier again, and then our profit is $350 is equal to 5T minus 300. And now we solve for T. Before we solved for P, but it was easy because it was already by itself. Now we got to get T by itself. So what we do, we add 300 to both sides. So we get 650, those cancel out, is equal to 5T. Now, since 5 is multiplying T, we must divide by 5 to both sides. And then now we have 650 divided by 5 is 130, and then 5 divided by 5 is 1, so we get T. T is equal to 130. This means 130 tickets must be sold to get our $350 of profit. All right, last one. Could the profit be exactly $146? Justify your answer. Okay. So when I look at this right off the bat, I know that we're starting at 300 and we're going up by 5s. So I know that my profit cannot be 146, because 146 ends in a 6. And if you're going up by 5s, you can never end in a 6. You can only end in a 0 or a 5. So that would be my quick proof. But how you would prove it using the equation is you can go P equals 5T minus 300. They give us profit value, so let's put that in for our profit. And then solve for our T. Well, let's add the 300 to both sides. And we get 446 equals 5T. Now we have to divide by this 5 to both sides to solve for our T. So our T, let's calculate, 446 divided by 5 is 89.2 tickets. I have to sell 89.2 tickets to get 446 or $146 in profit. Okay? But I cannot sell 0.2 of a ticket. So you can't actually get exactly that much money. You could get more than that money. You could get $150 by doing 90 tickets, but we can't get exactly 146 because you can't say here's 0.2 of a ticket for that $1. Okay, thank you.